Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we've got another Roku to take a look at. Today it's going to be the Roku Ultra, and this is their top-of-the-line model. So our last Roku review was their entry-level device. This one is all the way at the top of the line. There are 5 products in between the low end and the high end. So I figure what I'll do in this review is give you an overview as to which one you should be looking at based on what your particular needs are. And if you want to go for the gusto, the Ultra has just about every feature you could ask for on a set-top box at the moment. But there are 2 other Rokus that also support many of the things, including 4K playback, that this one does. I do want to mention, though, in the interest of full disclosure, this came in free of charge from Roku. However, all the opinions you're about to hear are my own. Nobody is paying for this review, and no one is reviewing this content before it is posted. And before we get into the hardware of the Ultra, I did want to give you a brief overview of the Roku product line, because we've now reviewed their low-end, their mid-range one, and we'll do the high-end one now. There are 6 different players that they are currently selling on the market at the moment. It starts all the way on the low end of the scale at $30, and it goes up to $130 for the Ultra that you're about to see here. And there's pretty much a player at every $10 or $15 increment along the way. If you have a 1080p set, my recommendation is to look at this one called the Roku Stick. It actually performed a lot better than I expected it to, given how small it is, and it's a very good 1080p player with in my opinion, very good performance and certainly adequate for what I think most consumers will want out of a 1080p set. This is about $40 or $50, and if you are really looking for something low-end and inexpensive, the slower Roku Express might be the entry point. You can get these starting at $30 for the HDMI version. They do 1080p at 30 frames per second. They also have the Express Plus, which I reviewed a few weeks ago, that allows you to hook this up to a traditional CRT television. So if you have an old standard definition TV, you can get Netflix and YouTube delivered to it with one of these. And I think this might be the only choice out in the market, at least the mainstream consumer market, that does work with older televisions. So if you got an old TV, you don't need a lot of performance, then the Express is a good entry point. I think the Stick is very good for folks looking for basic 1080p. Now, if you have a 4K television, you've got 3 different options of Roku players. You have the Ultra here, as well as the Premier and the Premier Plus. They all look about the same. In fact, they look a lot like the Roku 4 that we looked at last year, but unlike the Roku 4, these are fanless and a lot quieter as a result, and they're a lot cooler as well. So these are definitely an improvement in hardware, although they've added 3 different versions of it depending on what you're looking for. So the Premier starts at $78. It supports 4K at up to 60 frames per second, depending on the service provider that you're running on the box at the time, but it does not support HDR, which many new 4K TVs support. It adds better color depth to your images, and for things that support HDR, you'll get a much higher quality image than something that doesn't support HDR. However, the Premier at $78 does not support that. You have to go up to the Premier Plus at $93 to get the HDR support. When you do go to the Premier Plus, you gain a few other things like a micro SD card slot, which you have here on the back of the Ultra. You also get private listening mode with your remote, so you can plug a pair of headphones into the remote on the Premier Plus or on the Ultra. And when you do so, it kills audio out of its outputs here, and it will give you that audio on your headphones. So if you have a significant other next to you, you can just plug the headphones in, continue watching television, and they won't hear it once those headphones plug in. It's a great feature of the Roku and something that works quite well. The remotes on the Ultra and the Premier Plus are point anywhere. They're radio frequency remotes, so you don't need to have the remote pointed directly at the device in order to get it to work. The Premier, the entry point of the 4K series, has an infrared remote, very similar to what we saw on the Express earlier. So you have to point it directly at the device or use the mobile app. And by the way, I've got a full overview of the mobile app linked down below in the video description as well. The Premier Plus adds Ethernet, which you'll also get on the Ultra here. So if you want to connect it up to your wired network for better performance, you can do that. However, all 3 models, the Premier Plus, and the Ultra, support wireless AC. So the big question would be then, what does the Ultra get you over the Premier Plus? So remember, the Premier Plus is $93. The Ultra is $129, and for that extra price tag, you get a USB port here on the side. You have an optical audio output on this one also, so if you have optical on your particular home theater system, it will support that. The remote on the Ultra gives you 3 things that are not on the other one, including a voice search, so you can click on here and speak into the microphone to search with your voice on this one. You can gain that functionality with their mobile app if you want, so if you are looking for voice search on the other models, including all the way down to the entry level, you can do voice search through your phone, but on this one you can do it on the remote. You also get some gaming buttons for playing some of the very few and not so great games that Roku has available on their channel store, so you do have that as an option. And there's also a remote finder, so you can push this button here. I'll show you how that works in a minute, and beep the remote. So those are the bigger differences between the Premiere Plus and the Ultra. So really, if you have a lot of your own media that you'd like to plug into your device here with the USB, I can see that being one of the primary reasons maybe to focus on the Ultra. But I'm not seeing a huge difference in features here beyond the optical audio and that USB that you can't get on the Premiere Plus. So that one might be the way to go if you're looking for something under $100 yet has all the 4K functionality. I think they'll perform about the same based on what you're about to see with our overview of some of the Ultra's features. So a lot of confusion out there, but each one kind of incrementally adds more features, and if you want every feature, then the Ultra will probably get that for you. Now, before I plug this in, I do want to give you one bit of warning about the HDMI port. These Rokus require HDCP 2.2 to be supported by your devices, and that means that your television has to support it or your receiver has to support it if you're plugging it into an audio receiver. If it doesn't support that, you won't get 4K out of this, just 1080p. I know a lot of folks, when I did my Roku 4 review, wrote in saying they were frustrated they couldn't get the Roku to work with their 4K TV because it didn't support that level of copy protection. It's not Roku's fault, it's the industry that continually puts these copy protection requirements on these manufacturers, so be sure your television or your receiver supports those things. And I'll give you a quick story. I had a audio receiver down here in my studio that was working fine, except when I tried to plug in some of the newer 4K devices into it. I had to replace the entire audio receiver to get something that was HDCP 2.2 compatible. It's a real pain to have to upgrade hardware to meet the industry's copy protection guidelines, but that is the world we live in. So let me go get this thing hooked up and we'll see how the Roku Ultra performs. And remember, you'll see the same performance more or less out of the Premiere and the Premiere Plus. So let's get started. All right, so here we are on the main screen of the Roku Ultra, and you'll notice if you watch my other Roku videos that this doesn't look all that much different. In fact, it doesn't look different at all. They've got the same interface across the entire product line. So I'm going to point you to my review of the Roku Stick so you can see exactly what these Roku devices can or can't do, because the context will be the same. What I will do, though, is just show you how much faster this one is perhaps than the Express that we looked at recently. So if I load up Netflix here, you can see the app will load up a lot faster and get us streaming quicker than we saw on the other device. I have found that this is slower, though, than the Apple TV or perhaps the Android TV devices that we've looked at insofar as loading the apps up. But once things get loaded, they do get working pretty quickly here, so I can go in and start streaming a show at 1080p just because we're doing high definition right now only, and you can see how fast your streams get up and running. And of course, having Ethernet plugged in really helps get us to that point a lot quicker. So a lot faster speed here on the 4K devices, and a little faster than the Stick and a lot faster than the entry-level Express. And I've mentioned this in my other Roku reviews, but I will bring it up again here in that Roku does have a much better channel selection than many of the other boxes out there because they are not in the content business and therefore are not competing. So you get Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, even Google Play, and a number of other services are all on this box, whereas other services are not showing up on some versus others due to commercial and competitive reasons. So that is one of the reasons you might want to look at a Roku. If your smart TV doesn't offer as much as you'd like, you will probably get the most available channels on one of these boxes versus something else. Just know that these do not support Apple iTunes content. You have to get an Apple TV or an iPad or something for that, but these do support everything else. A couple other features here that are unique to the Ultra. You do, again, get that voice search, so I can hold down the search button here and say Star Wars. And it will then go into the Roku Universal Search, so I could see here that The Force Awakens is available from all these different providers that I have installed on the box, so I can pull those up. Great Amazon support on this box, by the way, which I will cover in just a second when we get into some of the HDR stuff. You also, again, have that remote finder, so if I push this button here on the top of the console, I will get my remote beeping here so I can find it. And the nice thing is it stops after a minute, so you don't have to have it beeping in perpetuity. You can just wait for it to finish off in case you really can't find the remote at all. There is a time limit to that. Another feature here is the gaming gaming, and you saw before that there are 2 gaming buttons on here. Again, the games really aren't that much of a focus of Roku. In fact, I'm surprised they're still offering them as a feature, but you can play things like Tetris and a couple of other things on the box, and if you're looking for some very casual gaming, that might be something to play with, but again, not a real focus of these devices. All right, so let's take a look at the 4K support. And remember, the Ultra here supports 4K, as does the Premier and the Premier Plus. However, the Premier Plus and the Ultra are the only 2 models that get the HDR support, which I'll cover in just a second. They do have a very nice curated app here called the 4K Spotlight, and they give you 4K content across a bunch of different service providers that are supported on the Roku, which was pretty helpful, so you can track down some 4K content that way. I did find that Netflix and Amazon had a bunch of stuff available, and I was poking through a lot of that. Did not get any drop frames or stuttery playback or anything. It seems like the hardware on here can support a 4K stream very well, so that was a good thing. HDR was a bit of a mixed bag. So Amazon support for HDR was great. I played back a couple of different HDR supported shows on Amazon Video and had no issues getting those to play back. My TV switched into the HDR mode without any problems whatsoever. However, Netflix was another story. I could get things to play back in 4K just fine, but the TV was not switching into the HDR mode. Now, I have a low-end Samsung device. Maybe there's some kind of crazy compatibility issue going on between my TV and the box, but nevertheless, in my testing, HDR worked fine in Amazon, but not in Netflix, although these are software things that I think they could probably get resolved a little bit later. YouTube also supports 4K on the box. However, it was not switching into the 60 frames per second mode for videos that supported that. So I was not able to play back 4K content higher than 30 frames per second. And incidentally, that 30 frames per second cap also applied to lower resolution files as well. So I could not play back 1080p 60 content at 60 frames per second, just at 30 frames per second. I think these are more software issues than hardware issues. I think the hardware here can clearly support that level of playback, but just be aware your 4K HDR performance will be a mixed bag depending on your TV and what application you're trying to use for it. Again, Amazon worked fine for me, but Netflix at the time that I'm recording this did not get me HDR, but it did get me 4K. Now, one of the things that the Roku Ultra gets you that the other devices don't is an external USB port. So if you have an external hard drive like I have here, and you have some of your own media that you'd like to play back on your box, you can do that through the network port there. And there's an app called Media Player that is available for free through Roku's App Store that allows you to play back media from either that SD card slot that's on the Ultra here or the Premier Plus, or through the USB port that is only on the Ultra. Media Player also, by the way, works over your network. So if you have a network attached storage device in your house, you can pull media over it that way. So I've got on here 2 different files here. This is an HEVC file. That's a 4K file. It seems to be playing that back just fine. So you're able to get some of the HEVC stuff done on there. I also have a Blu-ray MKV file that I can play back as well. It does take a little bit longer for it to spin up than it might on one of those Android devices like the Nvidia Shield that we looked at, but I found no issues with playback performance. But I'm not going to recommend Roku's to enthusiasts. Even though it can play back this content, there are things that home theater enthusiasts want to be able to do that these boxes don't support. So if you want to do higher end lossless audio like DTS HD or Dolby True HD, these won't do that, nor will they support some of the 24p playback modes that a lot of home theater enthusiasts want to use as well. The box actually can do 24p. I saw it do that with a few of the Amazon videos, but in the media player here, it will not switch down into that mode. So if you are playing back your own media, I don't think you're going to get the best home theater experience if you are an enthusiast. And I think if you are an enthusiast, my recommendation still stands at the Nvidia Shield TV. It costs a little bit more, but gives you a lot more flexibility, as well as the ability to run Kodi, which is something a lot of home theater people want to use. But you can run Plex on these Roku boxes, and they do work pretty well. So I think this is really best suited for consumers who are looking for a decent 4K playback experience. And I think if you're an enthusiast and looking at the Ultra as an option, you may not really want to go in this direction just because of those issues I just mentioned, and you may want to run Kodi and some other apps on here that you can't get on the Ultra. So I think really the Premier Plus at $93 is probably the best best 4K consumer entry-level playback device you can find out there at the moment, just because of its compatibility, the fact that it supports HDR. It's under $100 and gives you all the Roku functionality that we covered in the other videos, and that might be the one to take a look at, because I think if you're seeing some of the advantages of this device lying in its external USB port, you might want to look at something that might give you more flexibility on the playback side, especially if you're playing back your own media. And when you get into something like the Nvidia Shield TV, you will get 60 frames per second playback in YouTube and perhaps better Netflix HDR compatibility as well. So overall, though, I'm very pleased with what Roku's been doing. This is a vast improvement over the Roku 4, and I think for a lot of folks, the Premier Plus is probably the best way to go because the Ultra is good, but I think the Premier Plus will do everything a consumer might be looking to do, and enthusiasts who might be attracted to some of the higher end features on this box might want to look at something else that might deliver more enthusiast horsepower. This is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by my Patreon supporters. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/Patreon to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/S.